with
Yeah,
prepared notes?
I have
Okay,
quite a
good.
bit of commentary, actually.
Quite a bit?
Yep. So I'll start by apologizing for the length of my comments, but because police is probably one of, if not the most important services our municipal government provides, it is important that I be on the record with my concerns about this vote and how we got here. About 6 months ago, the gentleman from the Union County Emergency Services came and presented their dispatch proposal to this council, upstairs in the small meeting room. I listened to their proposal believing that, from a high level, there is an opportunity to save taxpayers money by sharing dispatch services. Recently, 3 nearby towns, New Providence, Summit, and Milburn, created a single shared 911 dispatch. I do believe there can be savings achieved through economies of scale in police dispatch, both on the human side and on the technology purchasing component. But it is interesting that these other towns, 2 of which are in Union County, either rejected or did not seek either Union County nor Morris County dispatch offerings, instead making a 3-town shared dispatch. So as a matter of policy, I'm not opposed to the idea that Scotch Plains should investigate a shared service for dispatch. I think it is important that the public understands a bit of the history on this topic. I believe the right way to approach an operating or policy change such as this is to solicit for multiple proposals, compare them carefully, and make an informed decision about what is best for the people of Scotch Plains. At that first meeting, I suggested we inquire if Westfield could also provide this service, and at what price, as I knew they had invested heavily in their 911 dispatch post-Hurricanes Irene and Sandy, and that they had additional capacity and had discussed this with at least one other Union County town. It seemed to me the logical thing to do. In fact, for many purchases in town, we are legally obligated to solicit for bids and proposals, though apparently not in this case are we required to do so. Regrettably, when I made the suggestion, it was derided by Mayor Glover, who said a modern dispatch at Westfield was something that maybe they could only build in the future. So I was relieved when, to her great credit, Deputy Mayor Gillanella called me the next day, and as she will and has pointed out, she has a strong family connection to law enforcement in the area, and she told me that she knew that in fact Westfield did have a modern dispatch and we should evaluate it as well. And so she set up a meeting for myself, Mr. Mirabella, and herself, and we toured the Westfield dispatch facility. At the conclusion of the visit, Mr. Mirabella agreed to follow up with our call volumes and relevant data so that they could make a proposal. The council and town management received a detailed proposal from Westfield a few weeks later in June. After visiting the Westfield dispatch, Deputy Mayor Gillen and I visited the county dispatch center. Without belaboring all the details, what I saw at both Union County and Westfield, aside from the county facility being much larger at 10 seats versus about 4.5 in Westfield, were centers that had been heavily invested in, running almost all the same software and staffed with highly trained, and from everything I observed, highly professional dispatchers. The Westfield proposal, however, is cheaper than the Union County proposal. The headline fee for the county is $150,000, and for Westfield was $115,000. There are other costs involved, and some of the specific technology items are hard to reconcile, as the council has never received a side-by-side comparison of the offerings. But to the best of my ability with the information I have, I believe the Westfield dispatch option represents from $20,000 to $40,000 of savings per year versus moving to Union County. You may hear more from people here tonight about what some unique points of the county offering is, the primary of those being more redundancy. But I believe the Westfield offering, taken as a whole, is every bit as good as, or even better than, the offering from the county. So why should you, the citizens of Scotch Plains, pay more to go to Union County? Ask yourselves that again when you get home tonight. Why should you have to pay more for the same service? You will hear more from supporters of Union County Dispatch about how they feel that offering compares favorably. So I will highlight for you just a couple things, in addition to price, that I believe are better about the Westfield option. I observed how in our dispatch and at the Westfield dispatch, the dispatchers are listening live to the police radio channel. They know what is going on. With Westfield, there aren't any further ambitions to add more towns. The dispatchers would be able to listen to the radio channels of both police departments. At the county dispatch, and I've been told they intend to grow by adding more municipal police departments, I don't see how a room with 10 dispatchers and many police departments could all be listening to all the radio channels. I don't think it would be humanly possible. And while I'm a huge fan of technology, it's clear to me that there will be situations where specific knowledge and human input will yield better outcomes. Westfield has also invested in a very impressive mobile command unit. While I understand that Union County has 6 stations that they can take and use off-site, and they have engineered their existing facility to have much redundancy, they simply don't have the sort of mobile and equivalent scale backup that Westfield has. It's worth noting that when 3 towns who created their own shared dispatch went live, they ran their dispatch out of the Westfield Mobile Command Center during that cutover. With respect to redundancy, while the county operation is bigger and with more seats, and for one-off spikes and incidents, it might have more headcount redundancy, I think that it is a double-edged sword. Should there be a major incident elsewhere in the county that swamps the county facility, Scotch Plains could see its service impacted despite nothing going on locally in Scotch Plains. After receiving the Westfield proposal at a council meeting in midsummer, there was no further activity or discussion at the council level until this appeared on the discussion agenda in September. At that meeting, our manager indicated he had a preference that we go ahead with moving the dispatch and that we go to the county rather than Westfield, and did he have support of the council to do further work along those lines. To the credit of Deputy Mayor Gillanella, she correctly pointed out that none of these discussions or presentations had been publicly advertised, save for the word dispatch buried deep in a PDF on the website on the conference meeting agenda. Meetings which have been held in an upstairs room, not televised, and while technically open to the public, they were largely unbeknownst to the public. I thought there was a consensus in support of her suggestion that at the next televised meeting, we would have the county officials back to appraise the public and to see what further issues and input came up before deciding how to proceed. So I was surprised when 2 weeks later, at another upstairs discussion meeting, with no additional public notice and no TV running, the folks from the county returned and we were asked to take a straw poll to decide if we wanted to go ahead with moving to the county. Clearly, the mayor saw fit to completely ignore her valid suggestion, for which there was support. I understand the straw poll wasn't binding. We'll vote later tonight. And maybe I'll be surprised or shocked when the roll is called tonight, but the straw poll was 4-1 in favor of going ahead. So this has already been decided in an upstairs conference room well in advance of soliciting the public's input, and I, for one, don't think that is the right way to go about running a transparent government. A final item on the Westfield proposal before I turn to our existing dispatch. After receiving it in June, and remember it is less expensive than the county and is a state-of-the-art offering, nobody from the council or from this township has visited or gotten in touch with anyone in Westfield for any sort of follow-up. Either the Westfield proposal was so well written and so detailed that it answered all the questions just by reading it, or alternatively, it was not really considered as an option. So that's another question to ask yourself when you get home tonight. With regards to this process and our existing dispatch, I don't know how many of my fellow council members, if any, have visited our existing dispatch since we began these discussions. I appreciate that Mr. Mirabella did make available to me the chance to see our dispatch this past Friday. I learned a number of interesting things that I think it is important are highlighted. I spent a little over an hour at our dispatch as I wanted to see a 911 call come in, and it took 50 minutes to get the first call. In the meantime, the dispatch center and the dispatcher was consistently busy fulfilling other tasks. There were numerous people from the public who came to the window with questions that our dispatcher handled. Civilian staff from the records office came over to have the dispatcher get data for them. Several police officers came in to fulfill various tasks. It was clear to me that the person who sits in that seat is doing much more than just answering 911 phone calls. And if that is all the county is going to do, then there should be a true accounting of the cost of having those other tasks completed in-house. In the proposals we have so far, this is listed as a consideration, but has no dollar expense attached to it. Another thing I learned on that visit is that our dispatchers have above them a large TV monitor with a dozen or more video feeds coming from outside 3 of our schools, those being the high school and our 2 middle schools. I've since read articles about how these cameras in the system was partly paid for with federal grant money. Do we have a legal obligation to continue monitoring and using these feeds? The county proposal makes no mention of picking this up. If the county will take on this responsibility, who is going to pay for the cost of getting these video feeds up and working at the county office? And if so, This proposal needs to be amended to include in writing that they will fulfill that monitoring function. If this will remain a Scotch Plains function, who is going to staff the seat to monitor those feeds? And that cost needs to be included in any estimate of potential savings. It is troubling to me that our council apparently decided to make this move 2 weeks ago without any mention or acknowledgement or consideration of this monitoring of the schools. It is also the case that the dispatcher has cameras that monitor the inside and outside of this municipal building. Many nights per week there are boards and committees who meet here. Oftentimes I come here and the building is locked when there is a meeting scheduled and I need to be buzzed in. And conversely, I've come here when no public meetings are scheduled and yet the building is wide open. Mrs. Perkins addressed the council on this at our last meeting. Who is going to be monitoring this building and its video feeds? I went back to some old minutes from 2011 when a prior council visited this topic, and in that instance, unlike 2015, the council heard from the chief of police to learn about the pros and cons of moving our dispatch. I understand that Mr. Mirabella has had at least one conversation with our chief on this topic, and I appreciate that he forwarded me a list of other administrative duties fulfilled by the people who currently do dispatch that was provided to him by the chief. And for the record, they are the following, and I don't know what exactly all of these are, though I have witnessed some of them. There's RMS follow-up, there's lobby and communications staffing, walk-in reports, non-criminal reports, discovery and court assistance, bail processing, motor vehicle abstracts, applicant and background assistance, CCH, CJIS, DV Central Registry, restraining orders, motor vehicle summons and warning entry, prisoner supervision and processing, non-emergency call taking, routine public assistance, impounded vehicles, OT and comp entry, the aforementioned video monitoring of schools in the municipal building, and GPS monitoring. To that list, I would add that I've also become aware that our court, as part of custody settlements, requires exchanges to be made at our police station, and these can happen outside 9 to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday. These activities have thus far been referred to as considerations and had no costs associated with them in formulating the savings number that has been claimed by the mayor. To the best of my ability, I believe this will require at least one full-time employee and possibly more to fulfill. When that is factored in, it reduces dramatically the previously listed $179,000 of potential cost savings. As I said at the beginning, investigating dispatch sharing for cost savings makes sense, but in this case, I don't have confidence about what those savings actually are. To the best of my abilities, I think the cost savings from moving to the county could be anywhere from $80,000 per year in a best case scenario to as little as zero or negative in a worst case scenario. I also read some past correspondence from Mayor Marr of Fanwood to Scotch Plains Council in 2011 when Union County Dispatch first became available. Her letter cites how she worked on behalf of Scotch Plains and convinced the county to reduce their proposed fee from $300,000 to $200,000. 4 years later, the county now says they will do it for $150,000. They are at least moving in the right direction. But if you go to a car dealer, any normal person negotiates down from the sticker price. In this case, we found that the initial sticker price was at least double what it could have or should have been. But that doesn't mean it's still not higher than it ought to be. And the only presenters we've heard before this council are the same ones that asked us to pay $300,000 several years back. One final exercise on pricing and savings. The letter from Fanwood Mayor Marr claims that in the 5 years they have been on county dispatch, they have saved $400,000, which is $80,000 per year. In 911 dispatch, you have to staff it 24/7/365. And while you can work on other things between calls as our dispatchers do, you do have to staff the seat. So it stands to reason that Fanwood's cost of dispatch would have been nearly the same as Scotch Plains, with the same potential savings when applying the same logic in the presentation we've had before us. I also have a copy with me of the contract Fanwood has with the county, and they pay the county $80,000 per year, whereas we will be charged $150,000 per year. That's probably fair because their call volume is significantly less than ours. But simple math then says, if we are paying $70,000 more per year than them, our savings will be $70,000 less than them. Fanwood says they save $80,000 per year, so that leaves us with savings of about $10,000 per year. That's a far, far cry from the $1 million over 5 years that the mayor claimed at the last meeting and tonight. And $10,000 per year is a dubious amount of savings to pursue in the context of the other concerns I've highlighted, particularly moving to a police station that is only assured to be staffed from 9 to 5. One of the most troubling things to me, and I stated it at the meeting last week, is that nobody from our police department has come before the council with regards to this proposal. Our chief of police recently came before this council to answer questions about the noise ordinance, and he came before the council with a memo from our police department about moving from dashboard cameras to body cameras for our officers. Yet on something as significant as 911 dispatch, we get no input from the police department. The silence is deafening. It's troubling to me that this is the case, and I trust the citizens of Scotch Plains will find it troubling as well. I wonder if our PBA has been given the opportunity to provide input on this topic. I imagine Councilman Del Sorte would agree with me that a labor union could be capable of having intelligent input to add to the discussion and shouldn't be silenced on an issue such as this. Certainly, it isn't for them to decide, but I, for one, would like to know what they see as the pros and cons. Finally, you have heard that our EMS and fire, although now I heard tonight that maybe our fire isn't there yet, use the county dispatch and like it as a justification for moving our police there. I do believe we get good service from the county dispatch for those functions, and I'm happy to have them remain there. But there is a reason the county charges $6,500 a year for EMS, yet wants to charge 23 times that, $150,000 for police dispatch, 23 times more. That's because EMS and police dispatch are two different things. The county dispatch serves many towns for EMS and fire, but the only municipality they serve is Fanwood, a borough that has strong political connections to the county and is so small that they truly do stand to save more by using a shared dispatch. I am not comfortable that moving to the county is the best option for Scotch Plains. There are too many unanswered questions. At this time, I would rate it last of the three options before us. If any of my colleagues feel similarly to me, I would of course entertain a motion to table this vote until we have more information. Otherwise, I will be voting against this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Does anybody else have a comment?